It's the end of July, and while most people are still in summer mode over in Scotland, things are already heating up, especially for Celtic. The road to the UEFA Champions League is well underway, and after last night's second qualifying round concluded, we now know the potential opponents Celtic could face in the playoff round. That's right, the Hoops are seeded and just 2 games away from another shot at the Champions League group stage. Now, before we dive into which clubs are on the horizon, it's worth explaining how this whole draw system actually works. UEFA, in its infinite wisdom, doesn't wait for the third qualifying round to finish before they draw the playoff round. So while it might look like Celtic have 8 potential opponents on paper, realistically, it's more like 5 genuine possibilities depending on who gets through their respective ties. But hey, that's Europe. Nothing's ever straightforward, so let's talk possibilities. We could be facing the winner of Slovan Bratislava or Ki Klaksvik. Slovan on paper would be the tougher side, a team with Champions League group stage experience just last season. Celtic actually battered them 5-1 at Parkhead not long ago, but still they've got pedigree. Then there's Basel, who are already confirmed in the playoff round. They've got some familiar names. Yeah, Shaqiri is still knocking around there, and so is Albion Ajadi. Add to that a fresh signing in Andre Bauman, who Celtic were linked with earlier this summer, and it starts to feel like fate, doesn't it? I've got this feeling, and I've had it for a while, that Basel are going to be the ones drawn against us. Another possibility is Karabakh or Shkendija. Now Shkendija would be the preferred draw out of that pairing, no disrespect, but Karabakh is always a tricky opponent, especially away. We've also got Dnipro 1 or Paphos, and lastly Sturm Graz, who are already locked into the playoff. That makes up the set of 8-0. Again, not all of them will get there. So what would be the best draw for Celtic? Honestly, there's no such thing as an easy tie at this level. These are all champions of their respective leagues, but based on UEFA coefficients and recent European form, some options clearly look more manageable than others. Shkendija had an early exit in the first round of the Conference League qualifiers last year. Can't get much lower than that, so they'd be a favorable draw. Paphos are a bit of an unknown, only founded a little over a decade ago, but they made a decent run to the last 16 of the Conference League. On the flip side, Slovan Bratislava and Sturm Graz are arguably the most difficult ties. Slovan, as mentioned, played in the group stages last season. Sturm Graz also made it there and picked up 6 points. Not quite Celtic's 12, but still respectable. Karabakh finished dead last in the massive 36-team Europa League format, so maybe not the threat they once were. And Dnipro 1 didn't do much better. Basel were dumped out of the Conference League early, but individual quality could still make them dangerous. Still, whichever way you spin it, Celtic should be feeling confident. Last year's European campaign showed real progress. 12 points in the Champions League group stage, pushing Bayern Munich all the way. It wasn't perfect, but it showed what this team is capable of. If we can get through this playoff and into the group stage again, it'll be another huge step forward under Brendan Rodgers. Of course, there's always the lingering thought, are we ready? Are the reinforcements coming? That brings us to the current scene back home. After a short break following the pre-season trip to Italy, the squad was back training at Lennoxtown this week. Alistair Johnston mentioned it was a lighter session, easing back into the intensity, but the serious prep is now underway with the weekend fixture looming. Cameras from Sky Sports were on site as part of their annual Scottish football tour. You know that week when the big broadcasters pretend to care about the SPFL. But to be fair, they did get some decent interviews. Benjamin Nygren gave us a little insight into his mindset. He's got 2 big goals played for Sweden at the World Cup and make a real impact in the Champions League. And you can tell it's not just lip service, his face lit up when Europe came up in the conversation. He's calm, confident, and has a presence about him. Someone joked he should be reading bedtime stories on a meditation app. But behind that soft-spoken vibe, there's serious drive. Then there's the big one, transfers. Brendan Rodgers was asked straight up if anything was close, and he said he hoped to have news within the week. And not long after word came out from multiple sources that Manchester City centre-back Jamal Simpson-Pusey, or JSP as fans are already calling him, is set to join Celtic on a 1-year loan. No option to buy, just a straight loan. City rate him highly and see this as a big step in his development. He's only 19 but already making waves. Player of the Year in Premier League 2, a couple of appearances for City's senior side, and a versatile centre-back who can play both right and left. a big plus when you're looking to partner someone like Cameron Carter-Vickers. The first thing that jumps out when you watch him, his composure. He's one of those center backs who never seems flustered, even when he's being pressed in his own box. That calmness can be both a strength and a nerve-wracker, depending on the situation. He's not afraid to take on a player carry the ball. Forward, almost Christopher Julian or Christopher Ager style. And his passing range is solid. Diagonal switches, quick passes into midfield. Definitely a modern defender. Physically, he's got presence. 6'2", athletic, decent pace. All the tools are there. The big question is he better than what we've already got? We've seen guys like Mike Nawrocki, Gustav Lagerbielke, even Austin Trusty come in with promise and not fully convinced. The hope is that Simpson Pusey is a real upgrade. Someone who can walk into the cable and see Lexai and form a rock-solid partnership with Carter-Vickers. Sure, it's only a 1-year loan, but if it helps us get into the Champions League and make a statement in Europe, does anyone really care? We've done this before. Remember, Jason Denayer, same age, same parent club, same setup, and he formed a brilliant pairing with Virgil van Dijk. Nobody looks back on that season and complains that Denayer wasn't ours permanently. Sometimes you just need a player who fits even if it's short-term. And this might be exactly that. Short-term solution. High-quality player. You can talk about long-term planning all day, but if the choice is between another middling signing we're not sure about, or someone like Simpson Pusey who brings Premier League level quality, it's a no-brainer. Meanwhile, Celtic are trimming the fat elsewhere. Stephen Welsh has reportedly received a loan offer from Plymouth Argyle with an option to buy. Last season, he was at KV Mechelen, and although they wanted to keep him, they couldn't reach a deal. Welsh has battled back from injury, played in pre-season, but it looks like his time at Celtic might be winding down. Just another part of the clear-out of players who don't fit into Rodgers' plans. And there's more on the squad. The UEFA list is a little tight this year. With the new rules, Celtic can only name 25 players on List A, and 8 of those need to be homegrown. 4 from the club, 4 from elsewhere in Scotland. Right. Now, assuming Simpson Pusey is included, we've got 27 names in the frame, which means a couple of cuts will be necessary. It looks like Marco Tilio's on the way out, not really fancied by the manager, and Callum O'Dowda probably won't make the list either given his 4th choice striker. That whittles the squad down to a solid 25 with guys like McGregor, Ralston Tierney, and Forrest covering the homegrown quota. It's a strong squad, but you get the sense there's still a piece or two missing, especially up top. Which brings us to Adam Ida. There was a random report out of Italy yesterday linking him to Udinese. Nothing too credible, and it's already been shot down. Both Ida and Celtic see this as a big season ahead. And that's fair. He's not a superstar, but he's someone Brendan Rodgers seems to believe in. The real debate isn't about whether he can contribute. It's whether he's the guy to lead the line in Europe. Let's be honest, his all-around game can be a bit raw. He'll score goals, no doubt. But is he the striker who's going to get you that vital away goal in a Champions League knockout tie? I'm not sure. And I think a lot of fans feel the same. There's a real hope that Celtic are still in the market for a top striker. Someone who elevates the whole front line. And here's where the concern creeps in. What if Kyogo or Maeda starts hot, scores a couple of goals early in the season? Does the board then decide we don't need anyone else? That's the fear. That's short-term success papers over cracks in the long-term plan. We've got 4 strikers already, so it's easy to imagine the club hesitating. But if we really want to make noise in Europe, if we really want to keep progressing, a top-class striker still feels like a must. So that's the current state of play. Champions League draw coming on Monday. Playoff first leg set for either the 19th or 20th of August, second leg a week later. We don't know yet whether we'll be home or away first. Being seeded doesn't guarantee that. But what we do know is the Celtic are in a good place. Not perfect, but promising. If the right pieces fall into place over the next few weeks, we could be looking at something really special this season. And while everyone's eyes are locked on who Celtic might face in Europe, there's a different kind of pressure bubbling up behind the scenes. Building a squad that's not just good enough to get through the playoff, but one that can actually compete when it gets there. That's the real test. It's not just about qualifying for the Champions League. It's about proving you belong in it. And to do that, this team still needs sharpening. Quality depth and a clear idea of who the real starters are. Brendan Rodgers knows that. The supporters definitely know that. Let's be real for a second. Celtic have done well to get players like Carter, Vickers, Johnston, McGregor, and even Kyogo locked into the core of the team. That spine has experienced leadership and consistency. But when you start looking beyond that, especially at center back and in attack, there's uncertainty. Liam Scales, Austin Trusty, Mike Naraki. It's not that they're bad players, but none of them have fully stamped their authority yet. If Simpson Pusey turns out to be as good as his reputation, he could solve a huge problem. But that's an how if. And for a club in Celtic's position, that gamble carries weight. In European football, it's often not about how talented your best players are. It's about how strong your weakest links are. You don't get away with passengers in the Champions League. And if you're still not convinced, just think back to the last few seasons. How many times have Celtic looked great in the league only to be caught short in Europe when a mistake at the back or a missed chance up front cost them dearly? That margin for error vanishes at this level. That's why the chatter about a new striker is so important. Yes, Adamaida brings energy, physical presence, and a decent eye for goal. But is he the kind of forward who terrifies defenses, who leads the line with authority and composure when the pressure's highest? If we're being honest, he still looks like a player learning his trade. Not yet the finished article. And in the Champions League, you don't have time to wait for someone to grow into the role. You need a killer. Someone who, when they get half a chance at the Bernabeu or the Allianz Arena, buries it without blinking. The reality is Celtic probably won't go and spend 10 or 15 million on that kind of forward. It's not really how the club operates. But what's frustrating is that the squad already has a strong base. You bring in one or two more game changers, especially someone up front who can truly lead the line, and suddenly the whole ceiling of this team lifts. Instead of scrapping for third in the group, you start thinking about second. You start thinking knockout football, and the fans start to believe again. There's also a sense that the team needs more unpredictability. Last season, Celtic could be devastating going forward when things clicked. But when teams sat deep, or when the press was broken, they often ran out of ideas. They lacked that spark. Someone who could do the unexpected. It's why there's still talk about a winger coming in, especially with Marco Tilio likely on the way out. It's not just about pace or trickery. It's about finding a player who can change a game by themselves. Someone who demands attention, who makes defenders second guess every step. It's also important not to overlook the Champions League squad. Registration deadline is just 2 weeks away. And while UEFA does allow clubs to make 2 last-minute additions before the first leg, that's cutting it close. Every day that goes by without a new arrival is a day lost in preparation. The ideal scenario is having your key players and early giving them time to adapt to the system, the intensity, the demands. But if Celtic drag their heels, and let's be honest, that's happened more than a few times, then it's a scramble to integrate new faces into one of the biggest games of the season. There's also the risk that if no striker comes in, the responsibility falls entirely on the shoulders of Ida, Kyogo, and Maeda, all talented in their own ways, but each with their own limitations. Kyogo's movement and finishing are world-class, but he can drift out of games when service is poor. Maeda's work rate is unmatched, but he's more of a winger or second striker. And Ida, we've talked about that. So if none of those three are firing, then what? That's why the club needs another option. A player who gives Rodgers a real decision to make on match day. Not just someone who fills out the bench. The same logic applies to the backline. If Simpson Pusey adapts quickly and shows he's the real deal, great. But what if he needs time? What if he struggles with the pace or the physicality? Who steps up? Then Austin Trusty has potential, but hasn't exactly made himself undroppable. Scales has had good games but can be inconsistent. Liam Morrison is still developing. This is where the club's recruitment model gets tested. You can't just sign players with upside. You need players who can perform now. Another layer to this is the homegrown rule. Celtic can only name 25 players on list A, and 8 of them need to be locally trained. 4 from the academy and 4 from elsewhere in Scotland. Right now, they've just about hit that number. But if Stephen Welsh goes, they're down to 7. That doesn't mean disaster. It just reduces the squad size to 24. But it's a reminder that every move has a ripple effect. You let someone go, you might not be able to replace them easily, and you could find yourself short in an area where injuries or suspensions suddenly expose the cracks. There's also something symbolic about the type of players Celtic are targeting. Young, technically gifted, but not quite ready for the Premier League. That's the model. develop them, showcase them in Europe, and maybe sell for a profit. It works, it's worked plenty of times, but you need balance. You need experienced heads who know what it's like to play in hostile stadiums, who understand what it takes to grind out a result in Europe. Right now, Celtic are still missing a couple of those. Even someone like Kasper Schmeichel, if the signing goes through, brings something completely different to the dressing room. Experience, authority, a voice from the back who can organize and inspire. That kind of presence is invaluable, especially in games where the margins are razor thin. It's not always about making 100 saves. Sometimes it's about shouting the right words at the right moment, about believing that you're meant to be there no matter the badge on the other shirt. And speaking of belief, that's something this squad actually has in decent measure. You listen to someone like Benjamin Nygren talk about the Champions League and you see the excitement. These players want to be tested. They want to prove themselves on the biggest stage. And that's crucial. Because if you're going to go up against the likes of Real Madrid, Bayern, or PSG, you can't go into those games with fear. You need hunger. You need to believe that you belong. The next few weeks will tell us a lot, not just about who Celtic will face in the playoff, but about what kind of season this is going to be. Will the board back Brendan Rodgers with the signings he clearly wants? Will the squad be ready physically, mentally, tactically for the challenges ahead? Or will this be another campaign of what-ifs and almost won things? For sure, the fans are ready. Now, they've seen what this club can do on a European night. They felt the electricity at Celtic Park when the lights go down and the anthem blares out. And they've also lived through the frustrations, the collapses, the near misses, the games where you wonder how it all slipped away. So they know what's at stake. They know how thin the line is between glory and regret. And there's one more thing that makes this season feel different. It's not just about European nights. Domestically, Celtic will be pushed harder than ever. Rangers are investing. Hearts and Aberdeen are strengthening. Even the likes of Dundee United are showing ambition. There's no room to be complacent. Every point, every injury, every suspension, it's all going to count. And if Celtic want to stay ahead, they can't afford a slow start. They can't afford to be reactive. That's why the time for action is now. The window's open, the squad is mostly in place. But the pieces that are still missing, they're the difference between a good season and a great one. Between going toe-to-toe with Europe's best or just being there to make up the numbers. And look, if this all sounds dramatic, that's because it is. This is Celtic. This is a club that's built on history, on ambition, on doing things the hard way. The fans don't want excuses. They want a team that reflects their passion. They want a manager who fights for every inch. And they want a board that backs the vision not just in words, but in action. We've seen the blueprint before. That team with De Gea and Van Dijk. That side that pushed Inter Milan to the limit. The nights when Celtic Park shook with belief. Those moments aren't relics. They're reminders of what's possible when the club gets it right. So now it's up to the people in charge to make sure this squad is ready. Ready for August. Ready for Europe. Ready for the battles ahead. Because make no mistake, they're coming, and the only way to face them is head on. No fear, no half measures. Just Celtic full throttle. Before we proceed, subscribe to our channel and enable notifications to receive all exclusive news about Celtic FC. Don't miss any details about your favorite team. It's extremely important for Celtic FC fans. In recent days, an intriguing possibility has begun to circulate through the corridors of European football. Real Madrid, having secured the signature of Brazilian wonderkid Endrick, might be considering an unexpected move by loaning the prodigious forward to Celtic FC. The rumor, which emerged from whispers within the Spanish press and gained traction in footballing forums across Europe, suggests that Los Blancos are weighing the benefits of allowing the 18-year-old to develop further in a competitive environment away from the pressures of La Liga. While nothing has been confirmed officially by either club, sources close to the situation hint that Celtic's consistent participation in European competitions and their tradition of nurturing young talent could make Glasgow an ideal temporary home for Endrick. For Real Madrid, who view Endrick as a long-term investment, the strategy appears to be rooted in maximizing his growth before fully integrating him into the star-studded first team. Although the Santiago Bernabeu faithful are eager to witness the Brazilian phenom in white. This strategic detour through Scotland could prove to be a calculated step in his evolution. Endrick's agent has refused to comment, further fueling the intrigue. The possibility, while still distant, is being discussed with increasing seriousness in both Madrid and Glasgow. Observers in Spain have noted that Endrick, despite his immense potential and flashes of brilliance, may require regular minutes in senior football to adapt fully to the European game. Given the fierce competition at Real Madrid, with established stars and high-profile signings vying for attacking roles, the young Brazilian could find consistent opportunity scarce in his debut season. This has led to speculation that club officials are open to a loan arrangement that guarantees playing time without compromising on quality or exposure. Celtic's dominant domestic form, combined with their high-octane style of play, presents an appealing scenario for Real's management. Moreover, the Scottish champions have a track record of providing a platform for rising stars to flourish, most notably with players like Odsonne-Édouard and Moussa Dembélé, who both use the club as a springboard to bigger leagues. For Endrick, the prospect of regular Champions League football, combined with the chance to play in front of passionate crowds at Celtic Park, could accelerate his adaptation to the European stage. As such, the idea is not entirely outlandish. Discussions are said to be in preliminary stages, with Celtic's representatives reportedly sounding out Madrid's willingness to engage. Though no agreements have been made, the groundwork for a surprising yet mutually beneficial deal seems to be forming. In Glasgow, news of the potential arrival of Endrick has sparked excitement among supporters and pundits alike. The idea of a player already being touted as the next global superstar gracing the Scottish Premiership has brought a renewed buzz around Parkhead. While fans understand that any deal will be temporary, the chance to witness such talent, even for a single season, has galvanized expectations for the upcoming campaign. Endrick's blend of pace, technical finesse, and innate goal-scoring instincts could electrify the league and draw international attention. It would also mark a statement of intent from Celtic, who continue to seek relevance beyond domestic dominance. Manager Brendan Rodgers is rumored to be enthusiastic about the idea, reportedly viewing the Brazilian as a dynamic addition to his attacking options. Internally, discussions within Celtic Park have centered on how the club could position itself as an ideal launchpad for Endrick's European journey, offering not just minutes but mentorship, system fit, and media visibility. As the story continues to ripple through Scottish media, comparisons to past loan deals of high-profile talents to smaller leagues are being drawn, and the fan base waits eagerly for any official word. Whether it's fantasy or foresight remains to be seen. Meanwhile, in Brazil, the reaction to this potential loan has been mixed. Some voices within Palmeiras, Endrick's former club, expressed concern that a move to the Scottish Premiership might not provide the elite challenge expected for a talent of his magnitude. Others argue that any European adaptation phase, regardless of league stature, is a valuable learning curve for such a young player. From a development standpoint, the physicality and intensity of Scottish football could serve to toughen Endrick's game, adding resilience to his already potent skill set. Brazilian pundits have pointed out that many of their country's stars began their European careers in leagues considered less glamorous, using those experiences to build confidence and refine their craft. There's also a growing sentiment that Real Madrid might be employing a long-term strategic lens, shielding the teenager from intense scrutiny while ensuring he gains practical, high-stakes experience. It's unclear whether Endrick himself favors such a move, as he has maintained silence on the matter. His social media activity remains focused on training and personal highlights, avoiding any hints about future plans. Nonetheless, the Brazilian football community remains watchful, curious to see where this story might lead and what it could mean for the national team's future. At Real Madrid, the potential loan has sparked a quiet debate among the technical staff. Some believe Endrick should be integrated immediately, pointing to Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo as successful precedents. Others, however, caution against rushing his development, citing the intense media pressure and unforgiving expectations that come with donning the iconic white jersey. The idea of Celtic as a stepping stone has its proponents within Valdebebas, where there's growing appreciation for carefully curated player pathways. A season in Scotland, they argue, could provide Endrick with invaluable lessons in adapting to European climates, tactics, and physical demands without the harsh spotlight of La Liga. Furthermore, such a move might offer Real Madrid a deeper partnership with Celtic, a club with similar ambitions in terms of youth development and continental competition. With the transfer window still open, time remains for further negotiations and behind-the-scenes maneuvering. As of now, the rumor persists, refusing to die out, with insiders from both clubs acknowledging that exploratory conversations have occurred. Whether this tale culminates in a groundbreaking loan deal or dissolves into mere speculation, it has already captured the imagination of fans and analysts across continents. For now, the football world waits. Hello, fan! Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, as it means a lot to Celtic FC. Also, share your opinion about the news in the comments below. See you in the next video.